What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. It is a brisk one today. It's actually cold. Now, for the first time ever, I had to throw on a coat, so I hope you guys are going to just kind of bear this one out with me. Hopefully the weather is warm wherever you are at. I'm really hoping that we're still going to get some moderately warm weather. I know it probably won't be in the 80s ever again, but at least in the 70s, it'd be so nice. It was 45 degrees this morning, so it's a very chilly one today. And so what we're talking about today is we're going to be talking about 5 things us as gardeners need to start doing and 5 things us as gardeners need to stop doing. Now, I'm going to give you the positives and the negatives because in this one video, I want to give you both because I think it's going to be a great take home. And we're going to fly right through these points because they were really prompted through a series of events that I've seen unfolding on social media as well as in our inbox. And so what we're going to talk about today are those things because I think as a core, MIgardener has always intended to help people grow more food, get more excited about gardening, make gardening more fun and enjoyable, and really make it something that everyone thinks they can do. There's obviously challenges with gardening, and I highlight some of those challenges, but for the most part, I talk about how easy gardening can be because gardening does not have to be this massive, bountiful, successful garden. It just has to be a garden. And even if it's a failure, it's still, by definition, a garden. And so I've always talked about just how easy it is to try to promote how fun it can be and how relaxing and enjoyable it can be. And the first thing that constantly comes up in my inbox is, Luke, you need to stop talking about how easy gardening is. You need to stop talking about just how simple it is. Because if it was simple, everyone would do it. And that's one thing that I really think us as gardeners need to stop doing. We need to stop talking about how difficult and how strenuous and how tiring gardening can be because yes, everything has its challenges. Obviously, you can't just throw seeds down, or well, you can, but you can't just throw seeds down and expect success. But you can throw seeds down and still have a garden. If that's your view of a garden, that's fine. That's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I've always said that gardening is not a one-size-fits-all solution, which is another point we'll get into. But gardening is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and so if someone wants to throw seeds just on bare soil and let it get all weedy and stuff, sure, they're going to learn from their experiences if that's something they like or not. It might be something they like, and if it is, it doesn't affect me. I really want you guys to think about that because it's something that does not affect you either. If they're asking for advice, if they're asking for feedback, sure, give some feedback, give some helpful feedback. But don't see what they're doing, see their happiness in doing so, and then shoot them down just because you want to see them grow a garden like how you grow. So that's the first thing, because I think that is so common, especially on social media. I see this on Facebook all the time. And I have to speak out about it. So that's the first thing we as gardeners need to stop doing is projecting our view of gardening onto other people. It's just not going to work, and it's not going to influence others to start a garden or to really want to start a garden because a garden should be your own. The first thing us as gardeners need to start doing is we need to start looking at gardening in a way that is more open-minded. This kind of ties into the first point. And all these points are really going to tie into each other because they were all brought about from a series of events that I've seen unfolding, like I said, on our social media pages as well as our inbox. And we need to start being more open-minded. When it comes to gardening is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And when we look at whether someone is growing in raised beds or in ground or hydroponic or in hugelculture or permaculture or aquaculture or whatever culture, it doesn't matter how someone is gardening because gardening can be a variety of different methods and it's still gardening because your view of gardening does not have to be their view of gardening. And when I tell people, hey, we're growing in raised beds with pure compost, we grow all organically, we grow with heirloom seeds, we promote biodiversity and all these things, someone might be on the other end of that and say, well, I don't do any of that. And that is fine because at the core of what MIgardener's mission is getting people outside, getting people growing a garden of whatever kind it is, whether it's organic or inorganic. And yes, I have my personal preferences, and yes, I will share those preferences because people People that don't have a garden yet and want to get started, they want some type of advice. They want some type of nudge in the right direction. But I'm not going to tell them what they have to do. I'm going to tell them what I am doing. And if that resonates with them, wonderful. And so just be more open-minded because, again, I go back to the social media reference that I've seen so many people that have a raised bed garden. And I will literally see these negative Nancys come on there and say, oh, you shouldn't have a raised bed garden. That wood's treated, or that wood's gonna rot, or that wood's too expensive. Who's you to say what's expensive and what's not? So don't worry what someone else is doing. Just focus on yourself and what you can be doing in your garden and make the gardening community a better place. The next thing us as gardeners need to stop doing is we need to stop thinking that gardening has to be expensive. This is something that just bothers me to no end because gardening does not have to be expensive. Our garden here, each raised bed, costs us right around $25 for the lumber. And well, all the materials to build the raised bed. The soil inside was a combination of native soil as well as compost. We use pretty much pure compost here in our garden, but we did use some native soil to cut down on some cost. And so we filled them up with a combination, and we pretty much grow primarily in pure compost though, and the compost we brought in was $300 for all of the soil that filled the raised beds. So all in all, we're looking at a total investment of just under $600 for this entire garden. That's not very expensive considering the fact that in a given year, we'll grow $2,000 to $3,000 worth of produce, whether it's leafy greens, tomatoes, peppers, squash, zucchini, cucumbers, melons, it doesn't matter, tons of herbs. We grow so much that we see a return on our initial investment twofold every single year, minimum of twofold. So one thing that I really want you guys to understand is that gardening does not have to be expensive, but if it does feel like it's costing some money, just make sure that you look at it and say, is this going to be something that I can recoup? Is this something that is going to make sense to me? And if not, if your view of gardening, because I'm not going to project my view of gardening onto you, again, like I just said, I'm not going to reverse that and backtrack. If your view of gardening is, hey, I'm going to spend $10,000 on a garden that looks immaculate and incredible, and I know I'm not going to get my money back, and you have that money and that's disposable for you, hey, go for it. I think it would look beautiful. And if that's what you want to do, go for it. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I have a liking to stuff that's that's really opulent and beautiful. I have nothing against it. It's just if your goal is to make your money back on your garden and to save money on your produce cost, well, might not be the best way to do it. So it just depends on what you really want to get out of your garden. But if that's how you garden, that's fine. But gardening does not have to be expensive. The next thing we as gardeners should start doing more is we should start sharing our success stories with the community. One of the things that I've seen really often is everyone sharing their failures. One of the things that I am someone that I thrive on positivity. I wither in negativity. I tend to detract from negativity. I tend to just really stay away from it entirely because it fills our everyday. I mean, you hear it on the news, you hear it on the radio, you hear it in conversations. Everything is negative. And one of the things that I just tend to focus on is that your successes can be so much more uplifting and motivating than your failures. We're social human beings, and we really love to socialize with people, whether it's on social media or in person. And we tend to focus on everything that's going wrong. I've got pests, I've got diseases, I've got powdery mildew, I've got weeds, I've got all this stuff. People don't really necessarily want to hear about that. They want to talk about it, but on the receiving end, they don't really want to hear it. And so it's very much a one-sided thing that's not really going to get you anywhere. But if you talk about your successes, people thrive on hearing about successes. And counter to what people may say, people say, well, Luke, you sound like you're bragging. Luke, I might sound like I'm gloating. Luke, I might sound very pompous and arrogant. You're not. You're not, because if you are happy with something, happiness spills over into other people, and they're going to enjoy that. And they're going to start feeding on that, and they're going to start saying, I grew this, that, and something else, and I had a great tomato harvest this year. And that is what really creates a healthy dialogue, a healthy conversation, and something that then really attracts. It creates a net positive benefit rather than just talking about all the negative things that are going on in your garden. So we need to stop talking about all of the things that are going wrong in our garden and start focusing on all the things that are going right in our garden. The next thing that we as gardeners should stop doing is we should stop advocating and being okay with the illegal activity of plant trading on social media. Now, this is one that's really kind of, no pun intended, but it's kind of far off in the weeds and something you wouldn't normally think that I would talk about, but I see it happening so often on plant swap sites where gardeners are trading plants that should never be traded across state lines, plants that are invasive. Here in Michigan, we have a really big problem with something called purple loosestrife. It's a very invasive plant. It looks very beautiful, but it's very invasive, and it actually kills off a lot of biodiversity in the surrounding areas. Also, another one are Phragmites. We have Phragmites, and they're almost like a cattail, but they take over and they actually choke out and kill and smother a lot of biodiversity in wetlands. And one of the things that I see happen so often are people that are trading Phragmites seeds or purple loosestrife seeds or even plants themselves. And that's just, I mean, that is the worst thing that you can do, but also things that are just not recommended, like trading potato tubers. You know, there are state quarantines, and if you aren't sure, look up quarantine laws in your state for certain plants. There are certain agricultural restrictions due to invasive species that can really be harmful for the state's economy. So, for instance, Idaho is the potato capital of pretty much the world, and so when you take Idaho potatoes, they have a strict no import rule on potatoes. Every potato actually is exported from Idaho, unless, of course, it goes through some really strict quarantines and tests and things like that to make sure that there are no diseases or pests that could come in and wreak havoc on the potato crop, because that is, I mean, that's a staple of their economy in Idaho. And so one thing that I just really want to advocate is if you see this, don't be just okay with it. You know, tell someone that give them a warning first, obviously. Don't just fly off the handle because they might not know, but tell them, you know, say, hey, I don't think this is allowed, you know, or hey, this is an invasive species. You really should not be spreading this around. I mean, because that ignorance could basically be causing a massive outbreak in other states that is our doing by staying silent on this type of thing. And I see it way too often on plant swap sites. I'm a member of quite a few of them, and I see it happen on the daily. So just keep that in mind. We need to stop doing that. The next thing us as gardeners should start doing is donating extra produce to local food pantries and soup kitchens. We started doing this about 5 years ago, and one of the things that I've noticed is that whenever you take a big harvest of, let's say it's potatoes or tomatoes or peppers, herbs, whatever you have on hand, the look on the people's face when you bring it in is absolute pure joy. One of the biggest issues with soup kitchens and food pantries is that they're nonprofits, and so they rely solely on donations as well as donations of food and other things, because if you donate money, they go out and take that money and buy more food to give away. But if someone donates food, they don't have to go out and buy the food, because they can use that food to essentially stretch their money and stretch their resources and feed more people. And so in a small way, you can help to actually fix the hunger issue here in the US as well as globally, because like I said, when we started doing it, it was a small thing, but we said, look, we've already put some in the freezer, we've already canned some, we already have way more than we know what to do with fresh. And yes, we're going to give some away to friends and family, but we are going to set a certain percentage to just take to a local soup kitchen, whether it's a box, whether it's a small bucket of tomatoes, or whether it's just a whole crate of different assorted vegetables. We're going to do that because that's our part, and that's what we can do with our excess that might otherwise go to waste. So that's what we should start doing, because that really helps to create just kind of a change in culture when it comes to what a garden can do for a community. And the final thing that we as gardeners should start doing is we should start sharing these videos more often. Now, this is kind of just a joke, and I thought it'd be funny to throw this in here as a funny ender, but it is also true that we have over 1,500 free gardening videos. And one of the things I see so often are people that are new to gardening and they say, I'm new to gardening, I really would like to learn about gardening and have some resources to watch or to listen to or to read. Can I have some help? And I just see silence. I cannot tell you how many threads I've seen just go silent because people just didn't want to take the time. But all it takes is just copy, paste. It's that simple. Just copy a link, paste it, and you've done your job of helping spread these videos around to more people that are really going to benefit. We have prided ourselves for 10 years now, 10 years of helping people grow more food, have more fun gardening, and just making gardening more simple and more exciting. So if you have found these videos enjoyable, make sure to subscribe, make sure to throw a like up there if you did enjoy this video and all of our other videos. And also remember that it just takes a second to share these videos or a video that you see that you've learned from with another friend or someone that's asking a question. It takes just a split second, and that might mean the difference of them continuing gardening or spreading the love of gardening to other people. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. I'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.